Let's go! Gator! Gator! It's gonna be a football game tonight now, no doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
9. Rushing forward, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
Alabama back on top of the college football world.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max. And yes, it has been a week, but you know, that's what happens when we get into these off-season kind of lulls that we're in right now. Not a whole lot happening, but at least Randy has now recovered from playing Uncharted 4 and has rejoined us here. So, you know.
Yes, you're lucky that Uncharted 4 has not come out with DLC yet.
We'd really be in trouble then.
Yeah. Thankfully for me, Gary does not have a PS4. I'd be really
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, that game is amazing. I could not put it down.
I love those games so much. I'm thrilled and excited about playing it one day, but I know I'll have to wait a little longer.
You did play the first 3, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I love them. I love them to death.
Well, at least, maybe one day you'll get to experience that, what we assume is the conclusion, but you never know. Anyway, wrong podcast for that talk. But, we do need to talk about some football stuff here, but before we get to that, Randy, it's been a week since you have been with us. How have things been?
Things, for the most part, have been really well. I could fill an entire podcast with the different things I've saw and went to over this past week. None of them fit this podcast. As you said, I spent a lot of time playing Uncharted 4, and then the girlfriend and I went out of town and went to a live NXT show, which was a complete blast. So much of a blast, I got sick the rest of the weekend. And I'm still recovering from, so I have my thumb ready on the mute button for when I go into coughing fits, so I don't destroy everyone's earbuds. So if I slip up, I apologize. And then just watch the baseball and watch that crazy fight between Toronto and Texas, which was hilarious to me, especially with how much people overreacted because a punch finally landed in a sports fight.
And it wasn't MMA.
Exactly. I want to bring this up really quickly, and this is not a baseball podcast, but Randy is a close follower of the sport, and I just got to ask this question really quickly. I think this is all about the playoffs and everything that happened and ensued from the Rangers. This is their retaliation, but like I was telling someone today, I said legitimately it wouldn't surprise me if this didn't happen again on another field one other day because of the fact that we've had that whole controversy about guys sliding into bases and aiming for the guys, trying to tag them. Do you think that this could eventually happen more often?
I don't know about more often because it's just, part of the game, and MLB actually has went a step further with all of this year with changing the rules where if a base runner slides away from the base, he's called out. It used to be as long as you were within arm reach. Now it's if you're not going straight for that bag, not only are you out, but the runner going to first is out. It's an automatic double play. And they're trying to break up those hard slides into second, causing injuries and all of that. As far as this goes, it's the old school baseball mentality that just can't get away of You showed us up, even though it was 7 months ago. You showed us up, and we're going to get back at you at some point. And then you have the Texas Rangers, who decided to be kind of on the pussy side about it and wait till exactly the last opportunity they had this season. That game was the last time Toronto and Texas play in the regular season. It was the last time Jose Bautista was coming up to the plate before they had this guy who was in jail last year throw at him. Did he throw at him intentionally? Absolutely. Obviously, they're going to say otherwise because that's just how baseball works. You're going to get less of a suspension if you said, no, it slipped. No, he threw at him. It was the message that they wanted to send because of the bat flip. That pisses off Bautista, who then comes in hard in the second, and that pisses off Odor, who hits him pretty hard with a punch. Honestly, as a baseball fan, I have seen this time and time again over the years. This is normal, old-school baseball. Do I agree with it? Not really. But the only reason this became such a big deal, like I said just a couple minutes ago, is because when Odor swung, he actually connected. I mean, how many sports fights have we seen where guys just flail around a little bit or push around or miss a few punches, and they're like, oh, it's just a fight. But the fact that we have a clear shot of Odor drilling Bautista, all of a sudden everyone's in an uproar, and this fight is way worse than any other fight you've ever seen in baseball. No, it's not. I mean, you can go on YouTube right now and watch Nolan Ryan give somebody a noogie, just punching the hell out of the top of their head. I mean, there's so many worse fights than this, but just because there was such a clean shot in it, it became such an uproar. And baseball's in that tricky era right now where it's between the old school and new school mentalities. You know, they're finally starting to get into the newer statistics and give in to sabermetrics, but you know, those unwritten rules of baseball that have been around for a century, they just can't let go of them. And that old, what you did to us, we're going to get back to you in baseball. And that's how things get settled, is on the baseball field. It's silly child stuff that will never leave baseball, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And it was a blast to watch. You know, of course, I am in Texas, and I do follow the Rangers pretty closely just because I am. But it was fun here. It's been controversy nonstop, so I've heard a lot about this. So.
Yeah, it was something all over, especially with being in a, Last Word on Sports is not only in partnership with this podcast, but it's a Canadian-based website. You know, most of the big ownership group or whatever are from Canada, so you got Blue Jays fans in there. So even though it was an NFL chat that I'm in, they were certainly talking about the punch and everything, and it was just funny. And I'm sitting there trying to keep quiet because I'm a Rangers fan, and I didn't even see the punch at that point. I went on Twitter and saw a GIF, and I was like, oh, wow, or GIF, or whatever the hell I would say that. I just thought it was like, okay, wow. But people were making a meal out of a molehill there. It really wasn't that big a deal. But, people will do that all the time, even though they really shouldn't. But anyway, moving on to the football stuff, football side of things, now that we've talked about baseball for 5 minutes or so, which is not a bad thing, just probably what people are not tuning into the podcast to hear. But so we do have some news going on. Probably, I think it did come out today, probably maybe the biggest thing out of this entire thing, even though it's really not big, is the Titans finally release Zach Mettenberger, and he now goes into the in the QB carousel of, will he get signed by someone, will he not? Will anybody care? Because he's been the backup he was the guy that everybody thought was going to start. Then, they go and get Mariota, so then he's the backup again. He plays when Mariota is injured. He's not that bad, but he's not, very good either. What do you guys? What do you make of this? Is there anything out there for Mettenberger?
Well, yeah, I think Mettenberger is going to find a job somewhere in the NFL. It just kind of depends on where. I don't think he's going to be, fighting for any kind of a starting job, especially not early. But, I mean, you can look at some of these teams and you can find a spot. Is Mettenberger better than Kellen Clemens? Could he, backing up Phillip Rivers in San Diego? Possibly. Just go through. He could back up Eli Manning over Ryan Nassib. There's a bunch of places where you could just kind of pencil him in as a decent backup. And he didn't like that place in Tennessee, and he's not going to like where he's probably going to land for a while. But his best situation is to find a place with quarterback controversy and try to push his way in there, really. I mean, if his main goal is to become a starter, is get signed by a team with huge question marks at quarterback, and if you guys say the Jets, I will leave the podcast. But I mean, I think that's what he feels like he should be a starting quarterback, and he's never going to get that situation in Tennessee. So they finally, just let him go, let him do his own thing, and now it's his time to show it.
Well, this is one of those times, I think, where the team that you don't want us to mention doesn't work here, because you're basically getting the same quarterbacks you already have there, and it doesn't solve anything for you. So,
and his best option is to go to one of those teams that are really searching for a quarterback, and the controversy is amidst the entire conversation of that city, but I think also, job security is also a good thing, and I think he could find himself maybe sign a 2-year contract in a city just to get in, progress, maybe learn under a veteran quarterback, and move on and do what he needs to do with a city that may be interested in with him later on. I mean, even Dallas, even Green Bay, these are teams that definitely could use a backup quarterback that has experience, that it can step in right away if the quarterback was to get injured. Those are not teams with quarterback controversies at the moment, so that doesn't fit his want to be a starter, but it may help him down the line. I don't know. I mean, I'm just pointing that out because, these are some veteran quarterbacks that have been around the league, whereas in Tennessee, Mariota just got in the league. What can he teach him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not just that. I think it's, you go somewhere where, again, we've already seen in that first year, Mariota got hurt. Could it happen again for him? And he plays again? Sure. But I think they wanted to kind of take that, get a veteran guy, maybe, that they can put back there behind Mariota that's maybe a bit more of a security blanket, or just put someone that perhaps just maybe to sort of, okay, we already know what we got with Mettenberger. It wasn't good enough. Or just, we know he's not going to be anything. Let's just get rid of him or whatever. And nobody's going to really, want to trade or anything. So.
Yeah, and Tennessee getting rid of him, that puts Matt Castle on that backup spot. Not the best veteran you can have as a backup, but, you could do worse.
Yeah, hey, we went through it. So we know. He was not terrible, but he's same thing, kind of like Mettenberger, except he has experience in the league or whatever. One of these things that was something that kind of blew up because it's different, and it also has to do with a new stadium being built. But Atlanta, in their new stadium that they're building, that should be ready sometime next year, that will also host the Atlanta MLS team, Atlanta United FC, they are going under a much different premise with their concessions. Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be the name of the stadium, actually. And they are going to revolutionize the guest experience with non-alcoholic drinks, hot dogs, pretzels, and popcorn for just $2 with free refills, and peanuts, pizza, nachos, and waffle fries for $3, and a 12-ounce domestic beer for $5, which is much less than almost any other stadium out there. Certainly much less than Jerry World that Gary and I have been to. Woof, the prices are ridiculous. But do you think this is a smart idea? Does it maybe get people in the building knowing that, okay, I'm going to buy a ticket and the concessions aren't that expensive? And if it works, the thing is, all these stadiums sell out regardless. So, do you see this maybe becoming some sort of a trend? Could it lead maybe more towards a sort of baseball thing that Gary was telling me about, where you can get like an all-you-can-eat for a certain price? I mean, do you think this will mean anything, or it's just Atlanta just doing it because they can?
Well, I think, Atlanta's mostly doing this because, and I might piss off a few people here, Atlanta's not the best sports area anymore as far as fan bases go. I mean, you watch an Atlanta Braves game and the stadium's empty. I mean, who cares about the Atlanta Hawks anymore? And the Falcons haven't been that great. So
the Hawks have been good for a few years now.
Where are they? We can get a huge discussion about the NBA and why I don't really watch the NBA that much anymore, because there's, 30 teams in the NBA? And you can eliminate 25 of them before game one. And that's just kind of how things have gotten set up now. I mean, that's how free agency works in a sport where you only need 3. You're solid. So things need to get worked out there. But the Hawks are good, but they're never going to be a contender. But just as far as, to me, Atlanta is one of those fan bases that will just kind of disappear when the team is not that great. So to bring them in with these cheaper prices might work. And then it's one of those, yes, it is cheaper, but now you're going to get more sales that way. And it might end up canceling each other out, and the Falcons might make just as much money, if not more, from all of these extra concession sales if they're cheaper. I mean, how many times do you go to a ball game, guys, where you go, I would like to get something else for halftime, but it's just way too expensive. So I'm just going to pass out. I'm just going to pass on it and not worry about it. Now you get all those people thinking that, going and getting concessions in the second half, and that stuff will add up.
I think it also is, without saying, this might be a bit more for the soccer, when the soccer team gets in there. Because, yes, you're going to have that bump of people are going to go because it's new, but it's also an expansion team. There have been expansion teams in the MLS that have done well in their first few years or whatever. But most of the time, expansion teams don't do that great. So if the team isn't great from the start, and you have trouble filling that stadium, which they obviously are going to make it into a soccer-specific whatever thing, like Seattle does, it'll be like 20,000 or whatever. But another way you can fill the stadium is, saying, hey, you come here, you can get, for the price of what would cost you like 1 beer, you might be able to get 2, maybe 3. At least you can come over here and get drunk and have some food or whatever, and have some fun while you're watching this game.
Well, Gary, I don't know about you, but that's the part that kind of worries me. I'm glad that the beer went down to $5 and not $2, because, yes, I understand people like to drink and beer prices are ridiculous, but the lower you go with that beer price, the crazier the alcohol will consume this crowd, and then you're going to have to beef up security. So I forget even what team did it. I remember the documentary ESPN did. What was it, 10-cent beer night? Some like hockey team did or whatever. there's limits that you have to do as far as alcohol goes. So I'm glad that
you're
they
either going to have to
didn't
cut
go.
people off in the fourth quarter or the third period, or you're going to have a problem.
At $5, I think you're still okay as cutting it off in the third quarter, which most teams do right now. But if they made it any cheaper, you're looking at halftime because people are going to just go, oh, it's whatever. Here we go. Let's get way too drunk and have a good time. And then, especially in Atlanta in the heat, and you add the heat with the alcohol, and bad things are going to happen. But I don't know about you, Gary. Would that scare you off a little bit?
You would think if, like you said, if it was cheaper, I would not be wanting to go to these games just because of that, because I would not put my family in danger, especially, trying to get out of there in that parking lot, let alone be in the stadium worried about fights and things like that. But, I think, cheaper beer price helps them for this matter. Maybe the guys don't get completely wasted, but they get drunk enough where they get rowdy. And that helps the team. I mean, I remember Jimmy Johnson used to always get ticked off when the Dallas Cowboys would have games at noon. And the reason is because he said there's not enough time for people to get drunk. He says, I need my rowdy crowd at 3:15 in the afternoon. I need them to be drinking from the morning till 3:15. They don't have enough time to get enough beer in by the time we get to the field. So that's going to help Atlanta, I think, honestly. And it sounds funny to say that, but that's a good thing for them in the sense of crowd reaction, noise, getting people excited because they're already feeling good, those kind of things, But, you got to be careful. That is a serious situation. You don't want people so blasted that they try to go get in their car. You want to be smart about this.
They can't even get out of the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, talking about food-wise, let me say this. This is a good thing because they're probably not ever going to lower seat prices. They might, but we are no longer in the time where families, old factory working Joe can take him and his son or even the whole family out to games anymore unless they're making a good chunk of change. It's just the way it works now. Yeah, sure, you can get terrible seats where you're basically watching ants just to say you were there. But, used to back in the day, you could get decent seats, maybe not the best seats in the house, but decent seats for a decent price. Take your family and enjoy the game. And that's the kind of people that you want too, because those are the most fan-favored guys, the guys that live and die for the team. We talked about that lots in this podcast, I think, before. So I think this is at least a step in the right direction. At least the guy now knows he could take his kid or even maybe the whole family, go to a game and can afford to feed everybody and not share a hot dog between four people because they just spent $20 on one drink and a hot dog. I think this is a good deal. I think it's a smart move for Atlanta. And for the reasons Randy just pointed out, maybe they are struggling getting people in there. This will help.
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a draw. Don't know how much big of a draw it's going to be. You still got to pay those tickets to get in, and that's another thing. This will all be mute if those ticket prices are really, really expensive. So that's something that's got to be looked at, I think, more than anything else here. The Buffalo Bills going through some little bit of an injury woes here. You got Sammy Watkins with a small bone broken, I think, in his right foot. So he's going to be out until training camp. But the bigger loss right now, and he's a rookie, so he needs that time, Shaq Lawson, going to have shoulder surgery, and he is questionable now for week 1. He's that guy that they were looking for to be the replacement of Mario Williams, and now you're not going to have him for all that training camp. How big of a blow is this for the Bills?
I think it's a tough situation to be in, especially with rookies like this, because, they've got to get acclimated to the way the game works, the speed of the game, getting to really get in there and work with the coaches. Yeah, sure, he can still be around the team. He can go to meetings. He can do all those things, but he's not on the field. He's not getting the work in. So you're asking a kid to come out of college basically be on the shelf and come out, and then in game, I don't know, in 2, 3, 4, or 5, be ready to rock and roll at high speed. That's not going to happen. He's a talented kid. He can make things happen, but I just don't imagine he's going to be able to come in here and be prepared just yet. It's going to take some time. Even the guys, I'll say this, even the rookies that you're going to see go into this year, it's going to take them a couple of games to really get their feet on and to really feel comfortable in the NFL. I just think that this is going to be a tough situation. I'm not saying he won't be great. This may be a player that we're going to see shine in the second half of the season. But this first part, this is not going to be easy to deal with, getting into the game cold.
Listen, actually, this to me is a huge hit for Buffalo, as what Gary was just saying, how tough it is for rookies to get acclimated. And now you also look at it, and Lawson is part of Buffalo with Rex Ryan, and his defenses are all over the place. So, I mean, he's going to be able, as you said, to sit down with the team and learn all the schematics, but there's a difference between sitting there in front of a projector watching plays with, a notebook and getting out there and working with your team as far as what gaps you're supposed to cover and what holes you're supposed to hit and which lineman you're supposed to push out of the way so this linebacker can come around you. So it's going to take him time, especially with how crazy that defense is down there in Buffalo. And the bigger thing to me is, yes, he could be a huge part in the second half, but if you're the Buffalo Bills, you're looking over there at your division rival Patriots, who will be without Brady for the first 4 games, and you're going, we have to make a statement in these first 4 games. We have to come out and put the Patriots 2-3 games behind us if we can, and then go from there and see if we can keep them behind us. And now losing Shaq Lawson is going to make that a little bit more difficult. If he comes back week 1, how much of the defense is he really going to know? Is he going to be able to see that offensive line protection and realize that they're running the ball, I have to stay in this gap to break down this run instead of trying to go around the edge and all of a sudden the running back has 10 yards to run through. So he's going to have to really hit the books and figure things out that way and hope that it all kind of works out on the field come whenever week he's able to come back.
Yeah, you guys hit that one on the head. Speaking of hitting the books, Larry Fitzgerald, he's been hitting the books ever since he went into football early, didn't get his degree. He went back, got his degree now from that University of Phoenix and all that stuff, so good on him. I just wanted to make a note about that really quick. Always cool to hear stories about that, of guys getting to go back and get their degrees. Tom Coughlin, he's trying to get back into coaching again. Of course, he's, we know how old he is at this point, how long he's been coaching. We thought maybe the Eagles, we thought maybe the 49ers when that was going around. I mean, he has been a defensive, or was it offensive or defensive? I can't remember which side of the ball it was at one point. I mean, do you think that there's something out there for him? Or is it just one of those he's going to have to wait and see if there's a coach that gets fired in the middle of the season? Or
I think he's going to have to wait just a bit because of the fact that most of these teams have set in stone who they want to be their head coach. This is not going to be like maybe some other sports where you have baseball where you have a manager come in for a day, then get fired, and then you bring the next guy in. That doesn't really take place in the NFL because, that's just the NFL seems to, hey, we've bought this guy, we're staying with this guy. It takes something heinous to happen before they do that. So I think it's going to be a year. I really do. Now, is he going to be a consultant with the team? Is he going to have a small role? I could see that. That would be a wise decision for some team to do until they're ready to hire him. But I don't see him being a head coach or maybe even a coordinator. It could happen, but I'm weary on it.
Yeah, Coughlin came into the league as a wide receivers coach and stuck with that before finally getting the head coaching job. And listen, when the season starts, he's going to be 70 years old. I mean, this year's to me, I'm with Gary. I think this year's out of the question. But when you go into next year and he's 71, I mean, what team is really going to put their team on his back? So as far as the head coaching job, I think that he has to put that behind him. And I'm with Gary. A consulting spot, a coordinator spot might work. Maybe he starts going in the front office maybe a little bit. I don't know if he's into that at all. But really, I think that's his only option because he can't go back to college because that is even more work because then you have to do all the recruiting and stuff. And I just don't see him being able to do that.
I don't think he wants to do that.
So, I mean, so obviously your options are limited if you're stuck with the NFL. And I just don't see a team when he's 71 or going to be 71 years old when next season comes around going, you're our guy for a year or two. I don't see it.
I think for this, go ahead.
I agree with you guys. I think what you hit on, Gary, was perfect for him. If you look at Monty Kiffin, Dick LeBeau, they've proven that they can still be coordinators at an older age. I think Coughlin can do that. Try to find an offensive coordinator job or some kind of position coach. And, obviously you'd have to pay him a little bit more because of all his experience, but it'd be worth it for that.
Definitely. I mean, he's got a wealth of knowledge. This guy would be a perfect consultant for anybody, any of these teams. And I just look at him as a guy that just is someone that you get him around your team just in general. This guy is a great motivator. He's just a smart guy, and I think people can buy into what he's telling you. And I think that there's other things out there he could do besides consultant. We talked to a coordinator. Maybe it's not even about football, but it is about football. Maybe he goes to one of these sports networks and, hey, gets on the panel. Does little discussions with those guys. I've heard him do it before. He does a great job. Maybe he goes and does some entertainment, does commercials. Maybe becomes an underwear model. This guy has lots of different things he can do.
I just can't see Tom Coughlin being like Jay Gruden and being happy behind the desk.
No, but that's
until
it's just a year.
All of the doors get shut. Just until all of the doors get shut. I mean, this whole topic came up because he's already getting that itch now. Like the season hasn't even started, and he's like, I want to coach. So, but I think he's going to do everything he can. It's just I don't see that many opportunities for him.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be one of these coaches. Just the team is expected to be great. They've been there a little bit, and they just flat out suck. And they just go, okay, you know what? This isn't working. And last year, Miami was perfect for that because Joe Philbin had been there just enough to where it's kind of like, okay, we know what you can do. This has been bad. All right, whatever. I don't see that. And now that the only coach that I could see that really happening with, I think with what you did in the draft by going to get the rookie quarterback, I don't think you can do that to Jeff Fisher now. Even if the Rams go 0-16, because you did all the things that you did, and this guy's a rookie, and there's a possibility that he's not going to be great out of the box, I don't think you can fire him for that. So that to me would have been that one place where I said, okay, it's possible had they left things the same and they stayed with Case Keenum, if the Rams are 0-6 or something, they could fire him and Coughlin comes in. But I just don't see it really anywhere else right now, unless it's just a total shock or something like that. Yeah.
This guy, like I said, he has a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he could do a lot of different things. Heck, maybe he can go be Johnny Manziel's life coach.
You know what? Actually, that's a lie. If the Jags somehow bomb out, he used to be the coach there. Possibility.
Yeah? Hey.
Because that guy already told Gus Bradley they better be playoffs or he's gone. So
let's see. Weigh my options here. Jaguars head coach, a team on the rise, a team that could do a lot of damage, or Johnny Manziel's life coach. Yeah. I probably will choose Jacksonville.
I don't think Johnny Manziel is going to want to go higher than Tom Coughlin. Right?
He can make Johnny great again.
Yeah. I think Darren Young has a better chance of being WWE champion at this point. Anyway, so, and probably about like 10 people got that reference. But anyway, so we go from Tom Coughlin to lots of talk of who is right now coming off an ACL operation. But we talked about how much he meant to the Cardinals last year. Lots of talk about the Cardinals possibly giving Tyrann Mathieu the contract that would make him the highest paid safety in the NFL. Does he deserve that kind of
money? Randy, what do you think? I mean, I don't know. I think this guy's a talented player, but man, that's the best paid safety in the league. That's tough for me. I think he's a great player. I just don't know that I know they want to keep him around. He definitely fits those guys. It's tough for me. It really is.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up real quick just like some of the
Earl
highest.
Thomas has the highest at $10 million.
See, no, man. I like Earl Thomas, and if I had to pick between the two, I'm going Earl Thomas.
Yeah, Eric Berry has the $10.8 million franchise tag, and Devin McCourty has a $22 million guaranteed, but it's not his salary.
You know what? Just looking at some of these numbers, and like none of these safeties have really jumped off this page that I'm looking at. I do like Tyrann Mathieu. The question is his health. I mean, if he shows that the ACL's behind him and he has a great next season, yeah, absolutely. I mean, his numbers are there. He was definitely a huge playmaker for the Cardinals, who very much need that defense to continue to improve as their offense is getting quite old. So if they want everything to click, they got a year, maybe two. So yeah, if he got, I would say no contract talks this season, but you do what you did last season for us, 89 total tackles, 5 interceptions, and a forced fumble. You do anything near that, and I'm giving you $10 million plus. I think he's one of the top 3 safeties, if not the top 1.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just, once again, I mean, it's tough for me to sit here and say that I want to make him the highest paid safety. I would definitely put him in the echelon. I would look up and kind of evaluate the numbers. But if he proved his point, like Randy's saying here, if he proved a point that he deserves that contract, that is the best paid safety in the league, he gets it from me. But, once again, he's got to work hard for it.
I'd agree with that. It's never a bad thing to go on one of these prove-it deals. And I think Arizona has been able to we know what they are, and he's certainly going to be a cog in that defense. All he has to do is play just as well as he did last year, and you're going to get that big contract that you want. Is he going to be willing to wait a year, and will Arizona be patient enough and deal with that? We'll have to see. I think they will. I think they'll kind of come all to a mutual. Him and Bruce Arians are so tight as coach and player that I wonder if, he comes to him and says, hey, man, just give us that one more year, stay healthy, you'll get your money. Don't worry.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, in both situations, because you would love to give him the money now. Looking at his contract right now, he's making just over $750,000. So you're looking at a raise of probably about $10 million when you get down to it, whenever they come up with this kind of deal, which I think Atlanta would have been okay with, or not Atlanta, Arizona would be totally fine without the ACL injury. The ACL injury really kind of hinders making a big move like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of the news pretty much. Now we're going to get into our burning questions. I'm going to go randomly into some teams here. Not if you. We did cover quite a few teams in the previous show that Gary and I did last week. So if we don't cover your team, make sure you check last week and make sure we did not go over them there. So I'm going to start here with the Miami Dolphins and their new coach, Adam Gase. Obviously, out of that, Bill Belichick system, kind of going in that realm with where he his track record of making quarterbacks, when he's there, they play really well. In fact, something that Gary and I did not talk about last week is Peyton Manning sort of been Ryan Tannehill's mentor and whatever, and he has a lot of familiarity with Adam Gase's system. That's when he had that terrific year with the Broncos. Then Jay Cutler last year, he probably had one of his best years ever with Adam Gase there. Do you see with the Dolphins, even though they've lost who they've lost on offense, and Olivier Vernon there on defense, that obviously helps. They did, I think, they signed, Jason Johnson for like a $500,000 million or something. He's not Olivier Vernon or whatever, but he'll be decent on that pass rush. But I mean, do you think Adam Gase can help Ryan Tannehill finally get to that potential that a lot of people were seeing when he was coming out of Texas A&M, or you think that Ryan Tannehill, no matter who's going to be coaching him, just not that good?
You don't want to ask my opinion because I just don't think it's that good.
We already know Gary's opinion. He's a A&M hater.
It's proven over and over again. Prove me a good quarterback out of A&M, and we'll have a different discussion.
That's a valid point. Now I'm going to have to look this stuff up. But as far as this goes, I'm not against A&M quarterbacks, but I'm not the biggest Tannehill fan. But to me, this is his time to prove it. Adam Gase, as you said, has really stepped up the game of several different quarterbacks, and now he brings that reputation to Miami, and I'm sure he got the job strictly to help Ryan Tannehill, but he gets the head coaching job. It's the first time he has this job, so now he has to do far more responsibilities than he had before, so he can't just focus on Tannehill. So I'm curious how he will be able to handle all these different roles that he's going to have as the head coach instead of an offensive coordinator. But I'm sure a lot of the focus will be on Tannehill. Will Tannehill improve? Yes. Will he turn the corner and be one of the great quarterbacks? I still don't see it.
I don't think he's going to be one of the great quarterbacks off of year one. I think he's definitely going to improve. It's a lot to, it's a lot to, I think I'm seeing that Johnny Manziel is apparently a lot of the guys that have had records at all for Texas A&M at quarterback, so that already shows you. Gary is probably right here as far as...
I'm just saying, as good as the coaching and Peyton Manning coming to play, I think you could probably raise some of the best quarterbacks that have ever lived out from the dead. I think you could do a lot of things, but you can't shine a turnip. Just saying.
Well, you can shine it up, Gary.
Shine it up. What's it going to do for you, really? Let's be honest.
The Dolphins are hoping that it at least works for this year.
We can hope and wish and do something else.
Because right now he's getting a bad reputation of being the next Jay Cutler, just killing coaches. So, and I think this is one of those times where if it don't work out with Adam Gase with his reputation that he has, I think Tannehill might be the one that finds himself without a job on this end. That's going to be interesting, I think, for the Dolphins. I think he'll improve. I think the Dolphins, they were already 6-10 last year. With the defense, I don't know, you could say sort of not getting any better but not getting worse. And now you do have that protection there. At least when Brandon Albert goes down, you have Tunsil there now. He really doesn't have excuses to say, okay, it's somebody else's fault. It's either you get in there, you do what you do, you don't start blaming, oh, those plays weren't for me, or I didn't get to call audibles at the line, or it was too structured, or whatever BS you want to come up with. You don't figure this one out, it's on you, Tannehill. So that might be that's going to be a storyline where it's going to be very interesting to look at going in to the season. Now moving on to another team here in the AFC. What do you think? How do you think that the Browns are going to evaluate RG3 here, knowing what he has, which isn't, a stacked offense? It's even more depleted defensively than it was last year, or at least not any better than last year. He's got Gary Barnidge. He's got, the rookie Coleman. And then he's got a bunch of guys to fill the positions as far as receivers go. And then, he's got that Duke Johnson and I guess Crowell still there. What do you see RG3 kind of coming back to form? And if they don't play well, do you see them going to one of the other quarterbacks, or do they leave him in? Do they give him a lot of games to try to do something with his team, or what do you think?
I honestly think that they're going to give him this entire season. I just don't see them making any kind of crazy moves. I mean, obviously they got away from drafting a quarterback until the third round, I want to say. So I think they feel like Robert can give them a decent chance to win, and I would like to think that they realize that they don't have the weapons around him yet to really let him, expand his capabilities. It's going to be a rough year offensively, even if Robert Griffin III goes back to the way he was his rookie season. There's just nothing out there, and I'm sure they don't want him to be like his rookie season because they don't want him to get hurt. So, honestly, 2016 is just kind of the test drive year for Robert Griffin. As long as, they let him know this is your team, go out there and learn the system and work with some guys and see if you can elevate their game and elevate yours and show us that you're capable of leading a team again. And next year, we'll try to get you some extra pieces. But if they're really considering, dumping Griffin for a Josh McCown or throwing Cody Kessler out there super fast and not really giving Griffin much rope with the talent they have around him, then it's a disservice to Robert Griffin.
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Randy on this, and I look at the situation where RG3 finds himself in, and that's the fact that he's got to come in and try to be the guy that all these fans are clamoring for him to be. Rejuvenated, be that guy of the past, and he can't do that. I mean, let's just be honest. He's not young like he once was. His legs can't hold up like that again, but he can give himself some confidence by getting in there, getting the scheme down, and helping it to fit what his best skill level is. And I think that they'll do that. I think they will find the best attributes that he gives this team and pull on those strong points. So I think that he has an opportunity to do that. Now, will he? I don't know. It's a big question mark. I think all of us are asking that question too. I think he has the potential to do it, though. And, he can be something special. It's just, is his body going to hold up to do it?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's about him, too. Will he be able to at all return to the RG3 that the Redskins drafted and had that great first year? Speaking of returning to form, lots of questions about Le'Veon Bell, especially the way that D'Angelo Williams played last year. Of course, he's also coming off injuries. Do you see any kind of problems here for Le'Veon Bell at all? Or do you just expect him to be Le'Veon Bell? Gary?
Looking at that, I think that Le'Veon Bell, he's got to stay healthy first of all. So let's see if he can get through camp or anything else healthy. But I mean, D'Angelo Williams was such a great player last year. I think that both these guys have to go into this season and do their best and prove what they are worth. And I mean, if I was Le'Veon Bell, I would not feel confident that I'm just the top guy. I mean, I know that I would because of the fact that people call me that, but in the back of my mind the entire time I'd be thinking, man, if I get hurt again, this kid may once again, this would be a big deal, and they may decide to put me where he's at now, and that's kind of the technically second fiddle guy. So I think it's going to be a task, and I think it's a great motivator for both these guys, and to me it's a winning situation for the Steelers to be in. Yeah,
as far as like contributions, I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be back to his old form next year. Fantasy wise might be a little less because I do think Pittsburgh is going to wane down on his carries a little bit, let D'Angelo Williams out there a little bit more. Obviously, with the way Williams was running last year, you can have that 1-2 punch between these two. But Bell was effective when healthy last year. It was just very rare. So I think they're going to be a little bit easier on him, not run him into the ground and allow him to use his abilities in less capacity, but quality over quantity, I think, is going to be his motto this season.
So, speaking of another running back here, the Chiefs, we saw them be okay without Jamal Charles last year. They had Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West, and then they kind of went more to the pass game last year. Do you see Jamal Charles being that dominant part of the offense again, or is he going to be a bit more of a guy that they use here and there, kind of like what they did with the other two backs?
He's a well-rounded player, and I think that Jamal Charles, needs to be a consistent part of the offense. I think that, if you do try to go to more of a passing scheme or do anything like that, it still works in his favor to a point because he's a great pass catcher at times. But, I mean, I think that you have to give credit to those guys, like you said, West and the rest of those guys that were taking it over for, Charles. And they deserve some carries too, and I think that they are going to get them. But I still feel like the featured guy will be Charles, and I feel like, if he continues and has a great season, he's going to be the guy you're talking about. The rest of those guys won't be heard of. Now, if he struggles or gets injured again, these guys are going to have the ability to shine.
Yeah, unlike Le'Veon Bell, with Jamal Charles, I think it's going to be more, it's his team, but the moment he shows any sign of an injury, like if his knee's bugging him or whatever, they're going to pull him out quick. I really think with Kansas City, they want Jamal Charles out there as much as his body will allow because he is such the cornerstone of that offense still, both running the ball and pass catching with Alex Smith. So the more he's out there, the better that Chiefs offense is. But with what I was talking about with Bell, like any sign of trouble, and you're going to see a lot of West and a lot of Ware. But I do see them really riding Charles a lot more than what I was talking about with Bell.
I just don't, I agree. And I just don't think that Jamal Charles is a type of player who can get out of rhythm and be as effective. I think he has to be in a rhythm, and I think it works to his benefit. So
you guys don't think we're going to see them focus more on the pass game then, like they did last year? Think they're going to go back to old Chiefs?
Honestly, I think they're going to find a better mix. I mean, will there be are we going to be keeping track of how many games in a row it's been since a wide receiver's caught a touchdown? No, but I don't think they're going to not use the running game very much. I think now with Jamal Charles coming back, you can really mix him in with that offense, which now has a passing threat and a threat in the backfield, who is also a threat in the passing game. So I think the Chiefs' offense could be a bigger threat than a lot of people are considering them for next year.
Fair enough. Speaking of an offense, many people wondering what's going on with Colin Kaepernick and Chip Kelly. He's now returned to throwing after having that surgery and everything. They tried to do the whole training in the Denver. That didn't work. And supposedly Chip Kelly, every time he has interacted with Kaepernick, has called it fantastic as far as their interactions with each other and all that. But there's a lot of rumors that Blaine Gabbert's working hard and that he might have the locker room as far as that goes. Do you see Kaepernick being that quarterback and it working with this offense, or will they eventually have to go to Blaine Gabbert because it's just his head somewhere else?
Just to talk about a quarterback battle with Blaine Gabbert makes me laugh. It just does. I think Colin Kaepernick's going to get the first opportunity of it. And if he is really worried about Blaine Gabbert taking his spot, then he needs to just sit on the bench right now. I think you need to go into this season going, it's Blaine Gabbert that is the other quarterback in this competition. I can run laps around Blaine Gabbert. I'm Colin Kaepernick. Do you guys forget what I did against Green Bay? I need to get back to that form. If he can just focus on the field and going back to what he did, where everyone realized that he could be a star, and stop worrying about Blaine Gabbert, he will be fine. But if his head's so off that he is worried about Blaine Gabbert, his career's over.
Yeah. Oof. The team the locker room may be behind him. That's fine and dandy, but I think the team is going to get behind a guy who is helping them win games. And if Colin Kaepernick comes in and proves to them that, hey, he can win games, which he can, I think that's going to get that locker room back to where it needs to be when it comes to, making their decisions on who they really want leading their team, because I think that Kaepernick's got a lot of skill level, and I think that he can give them an opportunity to win now. If I'm Chip Kelly, yeah, sure. I would be saying every time I see this guy, he's fantastic. Heck, when I pass him in the locker room, I'd be complimenting everything about his body. I'd be telling him how perfect he is and be talking about his family. And I would do everything I could to make this guy feel at home, that he's the man. And it's the wise decision. And I just kind of feel like Randy. You're talking about Blaine Gabbert or a guy that's been to the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with a guy that's had more experience and a guy that has proven in the past that, hey, he has been pretty darn good.
Listen, we do wrestling references on here because you guys do a wrestling podcast before this one, and we're all wrestling fans. But Colin Kaepernick worrying about Blaine Gabbert is like Roman Reigns saying he had a bad match because he's worried about No Way Jose having the locker room.
Yeah. There you go, right
Much
there.
less people got that reference, but
I love it.
Yeah, that would be amazing to find out. But that's the thing though. Like, the team didn't look that bad last year with Blaine Gabbert being the quarterback, so maybe that is in his head a little bit. It's not about him having better skill than Blaine Gabbert. It's about we don't know. This Chip Kelly system sometimes can make people look better than they really are. But they've also got other things to figure out, like who the hell's going to play wide receiver besides Torrey Smith and Quentin Patton. So, and if Chip Kelly will actually run up and down with Carlos Hyde instead of making him be somebody he's not either. that's hopefully he's learned that lesson. Which that's I think I forgot to talk about in the news is that apparently, a former 49ers receiver, Anquan Boldin, at one point had met with the Titans, and I thought that's a perfect fit for him. Is you got all these younger receivers, you got Delaney Walker there who's a sure thing. You bring in an Anquan Boldin, I think you sure up that whole wide receiver core for the Titans just with Boldin there. And then you put the other guys around him. What do you think?
I'm a huge Anquan Boldin fan. This guy, he helps teams just by being on the field, being present, and he's a great possession receiver. He's a guy that can lead the locker room. So you're telling me that I can get this guy on my team? I've already called his agent and offered him whatever he needs because this guy can bolster your receiver core and he can help get these guys that you have currently in a good confidence level, and of course help them with some of the knowledge that they need to know.
Anything on that, Randy?
Listen, Bolin's 35. I think he can help a team. It just kind of depends on what spot. I would like to see him go to a team that is looking to take that step, towards the Super Bowl, not towards the playoffs. Because I think, again, like Gary said, you put an Anquan Boldin out there, you're really bringing him in for the experience. You're bringing him in for that one or two big plays in the season that somebody of his caliber and his experience is going to be able to do. The calm under the pressure, the guy that's going to be on the sideline making sure everyone is still doing their job, when things are getting rough, and he's going to get everyone back together. But you put him in a team where, they're looking to improve this year, but their sights aren't that high. I think it's a waste of Boldin.
I would agree with you in that it's a waste of Boldin in that he's older and that, it would take a lot for the Titans to probably even make the playoffs, first of all. Secondly, just for them to, go somewhere in that AFC, which is very strong. But, it depends on him. He did win his championship already. So, I'm not saying that he obviously would want more, but if one of those contenders for some reason don't want him or they're all full up on, I'm surprised the Patriots aren't calling. Mm-hmm. If all these contenders are already full up on receivers, I'm surprised like the Steelers aren't calling. Without Martavis Bryant, then
you brought up two good options there. So just real quick, roundtable. If you could put the perfect spot for Anquan Boldin this season, where would you put him?
I'd say, look, Amendola's going to be out till week 1, 2. So you've got Garoppolo there for 4 weeks without Brady. You've got Malcolm Mitchell, Edelman, who just had surgery too, so he's going to be coming off an injury, and who the hell else is over there? I don't even know. And then Gronk, and I think that's it, Gronk, and I think there's somebody else over there in the tight end.
Nick Washington right now.
Yeah, I would sign Anquan Boldin right now because I don't think Brady's had a big body receiver for a long time, and talk about two big guys running between Gronk and Boldin out there that you can just have a target to throw to. And that also helps Garoppolo a ton, just to have a guy like Boldin out there that he knows what he's got to do. You just tell him to go here, and he's going to be there.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Gary?
I go Los Angeles, and it sounds crazy, but I just think that, once again, experienced veteran, a guy that could be that possession receiver while the rest of those guys can be the speedsters. Tavon Austin can do his thing. You've got a little dynamic there. You've got a young quarterback that's learning the game when it comes to the NFL speed of it. And I think, Boldin could be a great guy to help even get in his ear to kind of say, hey, this is what the kind of receivers do. This is what, how we do things. This is what you need to watch for with corners, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just think it'd be kind of a cool fit.
I mean, it'd be an okay fit.
I just think LA's got they've got 3 running receivers in the draft. You're going to keep Farrell Cooper. You don't know what you're going to do with the other 2, and then you've still got other receivers there. Like, you're going to have to let some of these guys. Not that you don't let some of these guys go for Anquan Boldin, but it's just like, I don't know. It feels like they drafted guys so that they would grow with Goff. You got too much going on over there.
Yeah, I think the Rams are more future-based, which is not the best place for Boldin. Now, if you bring in Boldin and he's like, okay, I got my championship, I'm good, and he wants to just be there as the mentor for all of those young receivers in Los Angeles, I could see that. But just the 2 teams that really came to my mind as far as that team that is looking to take that big next step, and an Anquan Boldin could really help them. I look at Kansas City. We just talked about them. They have Jerry Maclin and Albert Wilson. Not much else. You put a Boldin there, in the slot, and he's going to make a huge difference to that team. A bunch of veteran players there. I think he'd fit right in. And then the other team, what team have I been toting all offseason?
You've been Jacksonville.
Absolutely, right there. It's Jacksonville. You put Anquan Boldin with Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, and you put him as like the 3 or 4, where you don't need much from him week in and week out, but he can mentor those young guys, and he can mentor Bortles, and he can get that offense together even more, and then have him make huge plays in the slot as the season goes along. He would be the perfect fit in Jacksonville as they continue that ridiculous offseason that they've had, and my prediction to win the AFC South grows stronger.
Mm-hmm. My argument for it is I think it's a great fit, but it's for the same reasons for LA. I know you said you got young receivers over there, but I think that's good. You want young receivers. You need a guy that's going to help those young guys. Being on the field and off, coaches can only do so much. And if you have a guy lined up beside you and showing you being right there, I think it works in both situations. I don't think it hurts to ever have a veteran. Even Reggie Wayne, he decided to retire, but I thought Reggie Wayne would have been good on any of those teams, when he tried to come back. So
yeah, but when you're retiring from the Patriots, when you could have had a season where you're going to get really close to winning, that tells you he's done at that point.
Yeah, I'm just saying if he did. That's my point, not about him,
Yeah, I mean, but I think if you're going to argue about the Jaguars, I think you can still make that same argument about the Titans too, because I know Bortles has been there longer, but he fixed those mistakes which killed gains for them. It doesn't matter how many times he was able to throw it to Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. If the guy's still throwing 1 billion interceptions, does all that really matter?
Yes. I still contest a lot of the Bortles mistakes was because he knew the defense was so horrendous that he was going to have to make big plays. They have done everything humanly possible to improve that defense, and I think that this entire offseason will be about, listen, your defense is now at least inept, if not good. So now you don't have to be Superman for us. You don't need to go out and throw 500 yards for us. Rein it in a little bit, and somebody like Anquan Boldin can teach him. He's like, listen, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. He didn't go out and fling it all over the place, all right? You just ring it in. He has the talent. Now, as long as he doesn't think that he has to fit it between 3 defenders to make the big play all the time, that would be it. I think Jacksonville, talent-wise, is so much better than Tennessee right now. Tennessee on the rise, absolutely. The entire AFC South is on the rise. It's ridiculous. But Jacksonville, I think, with that one or two more extra minor tweaks, could be that surprise Super Bowl contender, really.
I think the only problem you have is that, and the defense has not fixed this, is that I didn't see them really get much better on the offensive line. And what problem did they have last year? The moment Bortles snapped the ball, he had guys in his face. So did that offensive line get good enough to where they're going to pass block for him, where he's still not going to have that problem, which also helps you in the throwing interceptions? Because that defense did get better as the year went on, and you still had them creating turnovers as the year went on. It was more of he was just in a lot of situations where he's running for his life and he's having to make those decisions, and he does throw into three-person coverage or whatever, and that's the only thing where we saw the Titans get better in that area. So, yeah. I think it's a push with a lot of that whole, and then let's not even forget, if Andrew Luck can get back to being Andrew Luck, and they drafted like 4 linemen, if about 2 of those can sort of, well, we know what Taylor Decker's going to be fine, but if the other guys, or not Decker, Ryan Kelly is going to be fine, if the other guys are decent enough, we know what Andrew Luck and the Colts can do. So, that's still going to be an issue for everybody. And then Houston, if Osweiler's good, then that whole thing. That was the last thing I was going to ask was, do you think that, we were hyping this up with when they got drafted. Do you think that offense is going to be as crazy as everybody's expecting it to be with the Fuller and Braxton Miller and Hopkins and Lamar Miller and all that, or are they going to have a little bit of rookie issues getting open and defenders kind of figuring them out and Hopkins still having to deal with the double teams?
I think the Texans offense is going to have issues with a backup quarterback being their starter.
Damn.
Who now thinks that he has so much money, he's top dog. I'm not an Osweiler fan. Before the deal got made, I didn't want him to leave Denver because I didn't think it was going to work out for him. Then he got a ton of money, which makes him look brilliant, and Houston look terrible. I just don't see it with Osweiler. I mean, how much better is Osweiler than Zach Mettenberger?
He's better than Zach Mettenberger.
But by how much? I'm not saying he's not better than Zach Mettenberger, but can you really say by how much? I mean, Zach Mettenberger was on a Tennessee team which needed a lot of improving, and they have continued to do that.
The thing
Brock
is with
Osweiler was on Denver, who was stacked.
Well, but Osweiler has that same issue right now, where they have a defense that's damn good, and that might be able to carry him, and now you've got the weapons, and you really can't, it's all on him to, like you said, at least Mettenberger had the excuse. What do you think, Gary? Are you a Osweiler guy?
First of all, I need to ask a question, and forgive me for forgetting, but who is the running back for this team?
Lamar Miller.
Oh, Lamar Miller. Okay, so that's solid. I forgot about that. Okay, so you got a pretty solid running back there. You got a quarterback who, to me, I'm with Randy. This is a backup quarterback. He did pretty good when it came to playing with the Denver Broncos, but the Denver Broncos were a different beast. I mean, they had a defense that really supported him and helped him. And this Texans defense may be pretty okay and pretty good. I mean, they try to make some improvements, but I don't know they're going to be Denver's defense. I don't know. I'm not going to say he's going to be terrible, but I'll say this. I think that people are overhyping him a little bit here, and I think he's going to come in and do decent, but I think when he makes mistakes, people are going to say, oh, wow, the Texans overpaid.
Oh, that's going to be interesting as we head into the season. Obviously, you hope everything stays okay health-wise. All these players coming back from an injury, that they can go back to those being the players you wanted to be. And I think that's going to do it for us as far as the podcast goes. And if something, major happens on Thursday, or there's, a ton of news for some reason, we might do a shorter podcast then, but probably more likely that we'll just be back on Monday. But yeah, make sure to check out that WTO Network for all this, as we mentioned, the wrestling podcast. Of course, Randy's backlog busting project, which I was on talking Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. But I think it was you that played Crash Bandicoot 2, and
No, Wes played Crash Bandicoot 2, and I played Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. And we attempted to play Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, but that game did not work well on the PlayStation 3, and we banged our heads on it enough to give up, which I'm kind of doing right now with Epic Mickey 2. I've played 2 hours of that game, and I'm going, how did they make this worse than the first one?
I wondered the same thing.
But I'm pushing through it. I do still like the platforming bits, but everything else is just straight awful. It's bad. But if you want to have a good time, we have a Twitch channel. Look up Backlog Busting on Twitch, and then go through all the old videos. I challenged Wes to play Super Meat Boy. Wes is not the best platformer out there, and I didn't think he was going to get through this game. He got to the second to last level a bit easier than I thought he was going to. He has been stuck on this last level for 4 days, or second to last level for 4 days. His death count, he told me, was 3,200 right now, and he would swear up and down that maybe 2,000 of them were by this level alone. And I went back and watched some of the footage, and some of our followers on there just have begged Wes not to play Super Meat Boy on stream anymore because it is too tough to watch. It's brutal. But I give it to him. He's gotten nearly to the end of Super Meat Boy, which is one of the hardest platformers there is. Yeah. So I'll give him that. But the last couple days of his streaming is both interesting and rough to watch.
Yeah, that's one of those really, really hard games. So it's gonna be interesting if he can beat that for sure. Yeah, other than that, I mean, Running Wild podcasts have been having interviews with wrestlers, so they had one that had an interview with Johnny Gargano, and one that had an interview with the former Kurt Hawkins. So, check those out if you're one of those types that really likes to listen to podcasts with interviews. And yeah, so lots of stuff to enjoy there. And until we see you next week, later, everybody.